All right, so today's topic is fantasy football, and I assume that most of you are probably participating in it at some point this week or upcoming weekend, seeing as how we are pretty close on the regular season. Fantasy football is a fun, good old time, and today I'm sort of going to introduce to you our league and my team. Our league is mostly with the podcast, and if you watch or if you've been paying attention to any of that content, by all means, after you're done here, go over to facebook.com/VOR Sports. You can check out the podcast content and all the other stuff that you find here. I'm going to lose some people here right off the bat because you've probably already looked at the scoring here. So let me explain myself. This league consists of only 8 teams. It's a close-knit group of friends, and really the point is to just have fun. So that is why we have jacked up the scoring to the 10th degree, if you will. So this is not standard. This is only 8 teams, and I know a lot of people complain about small leagues where it's like, well, you have all the good players. You don't really have to risk anything because there's always going to be decent stuff available on the waiver wire. That is why we have expanded the roster to be the size that it is. I mean, we have 20 players. Holy crap. So fewer teams with a lot of players taken up, and especially in this league where quarterbacks are valued immensely because you get 1 point per yard instead of just 1 point every 10 yards. Those points tend to add up quick, and quarterbacks tend to be the largest point scorers in our league. So that is why you're seeing what you see, especially I put the first round of the draft right up behind me, so that's how it went. Mahomes, McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, Elliott Barkley, Russell Wilson, Michael Thomas, and rounding it out with Deshaun Watson. So as you could tell, I had the 7th overall pick this year. We just randomized it at the beginning. And so I guess if this does well, maybe we'll do some updates once a week after the games, and just to see what my level of frustration is that week, or if this turns out to be good. So I thought I'd just introduce the league and then talk about my team and go from there. So taking a look at what I was able to accomplish in this draft, it's good in a way that I have a lot of different players than I did last year where I did poorly. So the concept here was to go after wide receivers heavy and early, and to get players who were young. And I think I was able to accomplish both of those goals. I did miss out on a few running backs that I would have liked to have had, like Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Unfortunately, I waited too long, and the risk of them coming back to me was too great, and it ended up not coming to fruition. So I might be a little weak in the running back category compared to the rest of the teams in the league, but there are still the chances for some of these younger players to break out. So hope is on my side, I guess, if you will. But I wanted to go young. I think I have, according to the draft results, I have one of the younger teams in the league at the average age of about 24 years old. So I was really just sort of banking on, what's the word for it? Potential, if you will. So without further ado, let's get into, at least for right now, the starting lineup. For the quarterback position, we do start 2 quarterbacks. So I'm going to go with Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. And the idea here was to get 2 quarterbacks who are who have additional benefit in the running game, as do Murray and Josh Allen, who are going to snipe probably those goal line touchdowns from running backs. And I get 2 quarterbacks that have an arsenal of weapons around them. In Buffalo, we have Stephon Diggs, we have John Brown, we have Cole Beasley, we have Zach Moss, Devin Singletary. So a lot of weapons to work with. In Arizona, it's even a little bit better because now we have DeAndre Hopkins. Larry Fitzgerald is still around, even if it is for his swan song. Kenyon Drake is a very serviceable running back. And one of these younger players at the wide receiver position for the Cardinals, I do believe is going to break out. Either Andy Isabella, Keyshawn Johnson, Christian Kirk has been injury prone, but I still think he has a big time potential. So that, and coupled with Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, they did pretty well. He did pretty well last year, and I expect a second year, not bounce back, but a second year step forward that will be good for him in terms of fantasy anyway. For the wide receiver position, I just tried to get the best one I could at every single turn, starting off with Michael Thomas in the first round, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, and then down at the bottom at the flex position, we have Kenny Golladay. So really super happy about those 4 wide receivers. The idea here was, yes, wide receivers are a dime a dozen, but do I really want to be starting somebody like Michael Gallup in week 9 when I desperately need some points? As you think about that offense and how spread out it is, and you could say that pretty much about any of these guys, but I'm looking for wide receiver ones who are going to get the majority of the target share. And, with Michael Gallup, you're fighting for targets with Amari Cooper. who is probably better suited to be the wide receiver one in Dallas. So that's pretty much why I did this, why I did what I did. You know, Michael Thomas, his monster amazing year last year. Mike Evans is now in an offense with Tom Brady. Not that that's going to change anything, but I think the fact that Tom Brady exists where he's going to have some say in how this offense plays out. And then, of course, the other weapons to draw attention away from Mike Williams, including the newly acquired Rob Gronkowski, the existing Chris Godwin. It's just a great situation for him. Julio Jones, I don't think I really need to explain myself for that one. The running back position, this is where I'm hurting a little bit in terms of starters, but I think that these guys will be serviceable enough and they'll be involved in the passing game. Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is probably my least favorite draft pick, and I don't know really why I even considered drafting any New York Jets players. Adam Gase is, if you know me, Adam Gase is arguably my least favorite coach in the NFL right now, and I just think he's running this team into the ground. And the fact that he's talking up Frank Gore as much as he is, and the fact that he tried to trade for Kalen Ballage, and even though that fell through, it wouldn't surprise me if they end up adding Leonard Fournette, and that just throws a whole monkey wrench into my projections for Le'Veon Bell. Even though he did catch 66 passes last year, they are really hurting for any sort of pass catching with all the injuries that they've had. All they've got left is Jamison Crowder and Chris Herndon. And even Chris Herndon had a little bit of an injury scare the other day at practice. So pass catchers are few and far between in New York. So I think Le'Veon Bell will see more playing time in that aspect of the offense. Waited a long time on tight end. I was the last one to draft a tight end, so everybody else is going to be trotting out the superstars like George Kittle and Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce. So I went with Mike Gesicki, and the backup is TJ Hawkinson. The theory here is that I can sort of platoon guys in and out, and there might be somebody that breaks out like a Johnny Smith or an Irv Smith Jr. that is still on waivers. So I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of draft capital on a tight end because you only get to play one. Yes, I could play potentially three, but who the hell is going to draft three tight ends and plan to use them as flexes every week? That's just absurd. So sometimes there's been years where I use a high draft pick on a tight end. This year I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I wanted to go for skill position players because you start three wide receivers, you only start one tight end. Then for the flex, I'll also include him in the running back position, Devin Singletary, and then he was sort of one of those picks where it's like, you know, the situation is pretty good. The production last year isn't quite there for him to be like a starter in terms of fantasy, but I love the skill set, and I already talked up the team a lot when I was talking about Josh Allen. So the fact that he is the kind of running back that he is, low center of gravity, almost like a diet Kareem Hunt, if you will, and I feel the same way about Zach Moss, his backup in Buffalo. There is potential for him to be a breakout candidate. Kicker is Greg Zuerlein. Just looked for a high-powered offense, and I went with Dallas. Defense is Buffalo. This division has the potential to be pretty poor. You have the Miami Dolphins, who are in the middle of a rebuilding project. The Jets, who are ran by Adam Gase. I don't really need to say anything else. The Patriots are still a concern, and they always will be as long as they have Bill Belichick as their head coach, and Cam Newton brings a new formula to that offense. So it remains to be seen how they're able to utilize him with the surrounding cast that they have for him, which is way poorer than what he had in Carolina. So that is the justification for the Bills' defense. As far as the backups go, Kirk Cousins was just a draft pick late. I looked for a reliable veteran quarterback in an offense that is pretty good, and Kirk Cousins fit that bill. Drew Lock is more of a stash and gamble sort of pick because, you know, they got Jerry Jeudy. They already have Courtland Sutton. Then they got the other one. I believe his name was KJ Hamler from Penn State. So this offense appears to be like it wants to emulate what the Kansas City Chiefs do in terms of wide receivers and passing game. So that's why I went with that route. And then for the backups, for the wide receivers, we have Will Fuller from the Texans. Yes, the injuries are a concern, but DeAndre Hopkins is out of town. Brandon Cooks also has a ton of concussions to his resume. Deshaun Watson is absolutely going to ball out. It just depends on which wide receiver is going to get the bulk of the targets. And I'm just going to roll the dice here because my starting wide receivers are so damn good that I can afford to take this sort of a risk and hope that Will Fuller lives up to the potential that we all know he can be, that we've seen from those flashes of brilliance. Justin Jefferson's a little bit harder to justify other than the fact that Stephon Diggs is no longer in Minnesota, and that's about 150 passing targets that are now up for grabs. So obviously Adam Thielen can't handle all of that. And Kyle Rudolph isn't going to be targeted that much. You know, this is still a team that wants to run the football, Dalvin Cook or not. But Justin Jefferson could potentially be a serviceable spot starter in terms of fantasy. Receivers are pretty hard to predict in their rookie year, and they don't always pan out the way you think they might do. You have, of course, you could always point to examples like DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin last year, but I don't think guys like Terry McLaurin were on anybody's radar last year. For the backup running backs, Raheem Mostert and Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison is more of a wait and see due to the Dalvin Cook contract discussions. He could, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying there's the potential that exists for him to take the Le'Veon Bell road and sit out for a year to get a new contract. I don't think that'll happen, but, and it's more of a homer pick too. I've seen Mattison play and I know what he can do. So if the situation arises where he becomes the number one, I think that could potentially be a league winner. And then for the backup tight end, I've already mentioned TJ Hawkinson. So that is the team. And real quick, just to show you the scoring, if you haven't already seen it, you get bonus points, big time bonus points for going over 100 yards receiving, 100 yards rushing, and then 300 yards passing. All three of those instances will award you with 500 points. So this is a league where you will score 4,000 points on a good day, maybe 3,000 on a bad day. And if you're really blowing the seams off the ball, you're looking at about 5,000 points. So that is how the league works. And after the first week, I'll do an update and just to show you where my thought process is, throughout the season. And you could even sort of take this advice if you want to and apply it to your standard scoring league, or if you have a league that is crazy scoring like ours. I encourage people to do this because this is way more fun than just hoping somebody falls over the goal line and into the end zone 3 or 4 times a game, because you actually have to figure each play comes into consideration. Whether or not it's a 10-yard run, that's 10 points, or if it's a 10-yard catch, that's 15 points, because you get five points for reception. I don't know if I mentioned that. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.